Hey everyone, Pastor George here with today's mailbag, and today we have a question, the first of two, from someone who asks, this may seem like a silly question, but I got to seriously wondering about it recently. In the Gospels, we read that after the crucifixion, Jesus was buried in a tomb owned by Joseph of Arimathea. As we know, Jesus was resurrected on Easter Sunday, so my question is, since this tomb was no longer needed, do you think that Joseph reused it, either for himself or for a family member? Alternatively, is this site known and serving as a shrine? So that's a good question. I think the first question is a little bit easier to answer because it's, I would assume, a non-satisfying answer because it's simply we don't know, right? I mean, we can guess that tombs were special places that were given to people, and so it wouldn't be surprising if it was reused. It also wouldn't be surprised if it was turned into some sort of religious site, but my guess is that it wasn't due to the Christian kind of diaspora out of the Holy Land following, persecution, right? They go off to Antioch, they go off to other places. Some stay in Jerusalem, but a lot of them are ended up being killed. So my guess is that it ended up being reused or sealed or gone or whatever. But I think the more interesting part is I guess that other thing that you ask at the end, is this site known and serving as a shrine? And the answer to that is maybe slash we don't know slash no. We like it's difficult. So the history of that is a little bit more interesting. So you have what is considered to be, and I kind of put this in scare quotes, but the most holy church in all of Christendom, which is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. Sepulchre means like a tomb. It's a fancy word of saying a tomb. And in that church is one of the rock or the place where Jesus is, not only was he crucified, but also where he was buried. And so there they have supposedly the resting place that was identified by Constantine's mother when she went to the Holy Land, and she kind of went there and listened to stories from people who lived there, and they said, oh, this was Peter's house, this was where Jesus was born, this is Mount Sinai. So like the Mount Sinai that's in Egypt right now, we don't actually know if that's really Mount Sinai. We just know that that's what people believed it was. Could it be? Maybe. We don't know. But either way, she went around and she kind of built churches and monasteries and everything where these places were. And the Church of the Holy Sepulchre was where it is now, right? And that's kind of been the historic, well, that's kind of been the church's historic location for where Jesus was buried, where the tomb was. Well, you get a few millennia later, well, one millennia and a few hundred years later, and you get to the 1800s and 1900s where biblical archaeology is happening. And there was a British archaeologist who went there looking to find these things, and he determined that the sepulcher was not a good location. And I think historically, that's a very honest conclusion. It's not where Golgotha was. Most likely, it was. It doesn't seem to be the place that would be both the place where he was crucified and the place that he was buried. It's just a little too convenient in the way that it works out. It doesn't mean that it isn't important or whatever, but it's just not archaeologically what works. And so he went to another part, the hills facing Jerusalem, which is where most people were buried, and discovered a tomb there and declared and found it empty and declared that it was the tomb of Jesus. And that kind of has become, if you want to call it, the Protestant place. So like the tomb of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem is like for Catholics, Eastern Orthodox, and stuff like that. And the 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 other tomb that was found is where a lot of Protestants end up going. It doesn't really matter. People are just as skeptical of his claim that it's the actual tomb of Jesus. And I think this actually kind of gets to a more interesting thing, which is, do like these physical locations really matter in the way that maybe some people have given them preeminence in the past? Did they matter to the church? And it's interesting because in the Book of Confessions, right, we're explicitly told when we baptize or when we do food or we give oil or anything like that, we explicitly use stuff that is from the area that you live. And this was like the reformed and reforming response to this idea about like holy water, or that like a stone from Jerusalem is more holy than a stone from anywhere else, right? Because really the Bible doesn't say that at all. it doesn't have this concept of these, like, outside of the temple, right? These concepts of like holy places. The holy places are wherever God dwells, and with the temple's destruction and God leaving that, and Jesus coming into the world, right? God dwells everywhere. So there's no place that's actually more holy than anything else. And so it's interesting, right? And that's probably why we don't have the location, because the early Christians just didn't really care all that much about remembering the certain location. What mattered more to them was the message that Jesus brought, and that his resurrection had happened. So it's interesting. It's a good question. It's just, I'm sorry to be giving you an unsatisfying answer, which is we just don't know where it is. You can accept either. I'm not going to judge you. So good question. I'll see you guys next week for more theologs, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Thursday. Peace out.